Good evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. Thanks for joining us. Here's what's making news right now.
Just the system is not working, right? So all I want is the Minister of Immigration can look at my case.
I could have lost my child. All it takes is one bad kick, and I could be burying my son this week.
Well, the key concern for me when it comes to the municipal election has to do with inclusive employment.
We begin tonight with a Kingsville man trying to climb the career ladder. His boss says he's well on his way and wants to give him a promotion. But a backlog of applications for work permits has left him high and dry. Dale Molnar on one man's struggle for permanent status.
Help to load the boat, unload the boat, and tie up the boat, and any maintenance and anything else that requires to perform the ship's operation.
Daniel Torres came to Canada from Peru to study in 2017. He graduated with a college diploma in marine technology and navigation, which helped him land a job as a deckhand on the Pelee Islander II. Other higher-paying jobs are available on the ship. The problem is he needs a license from Transport Canada and can't get it without a work permit and/or permanent residency status.
Additional to that, if my family relatives dies, I cannot leave the country, because if I leave the country, I lose my maintenance status, and I won't be able to have the maintenance status that I have now.
He applied for permanent residency last June and his work permit last May before his student visa expired, so he has maintenance status to keep working, but he can't collect unemployment benefits or qualify for OHIP. There's an officer job that pays more money and offers more advancement than the deckhand job, and his boss would love to give him a promotion.
So he's missed several opportunities here now as we've had to bypass him and look outside the company to bring a mate in. So yeah, it's not a good situation that Daniel's in.
Experts say the COVID pandemic, along with an influx of Afghan and Ukrainian refugees, is causing the delays in processing the applications.
And those take resources which are already scarce and which are already strained, and then it puts even further stress on the system, which we could argue all day long was dysfunctional even before COVID.
As of the end of July, half of all pending immigration applications were taking longer to process than they should. Torres says he should have gotten his paperwork in weeks. Torres is hoping the federal government can somehow expedite his case. He's turned to a St. Catharines MP for help. He did that while living there last year. Liberal MP Chris Biddle would not comment on Torres' specific case. He has provided Torres with a letter vouching for his maintenance status. Last month, the government said it was hiring more than 1,200 people to deal with the unprecedented number of applications, and as of this summer, issued about 150,000 more work permits than last year. A government spokesperson tells CBC News it must improve its operations to make them faster and more efficient. Kadri believes it will take a few more months before Torres will get his paperwork. Torres might be able to stay on with Pelee Island transportation system after the ferry shuts down for the winter, but he will likely have to find some other work since he can't qualify for unemployment benefits.
All I want is the Minister of Immigration can look at my case, and my application can be processed so I can perform my job.
Dale Molnar, CBC News, Kingsville.
Windsor police say 2 of its officers are facing misconduct charges. They're based on alleged donations to the Freedom Convoy. One of the officers said they did donate to a crowdfunding page, telling CBC News they donated $50 on February 8th. It was in support of the Ottawa protests. The other officer named matches a $40 donation made on February 7th. Both cases are before a hearing officer. The misconduct charges fall under the Police Services Act. And politicians continue to push the government to scrap the ArriveCAN app. Elected officials on both sides of the border sent a letter to President Joe Biden and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau this week. In it, they call for an end to all COVID-19 restrictions at the shared crossings. As of today, both countries require proof of vaccination against COVID-19 to enter, and Canada also requires people to use the ArriveCAN app. The letter was signed by American and Canadian border city mayors, including Windsor Mayor Drew Dilkens. It says, quote, "We have been left behind in the recovery effort as both countries have largely returned to normal daily life." It goes on to say that urgent action is needed. Last month, Canada's Transport Minister defended the Arrive Can app, saying more delays would happen if it wasn't in place. The government mandates will expire in 10 days if they're not renewed. Sources tell CBC no final decisions have been made yet to drop the COVID-19 vaccine requirements for people who enter Canada. Dropping these mandatory requirements on September 30th is one of the scenarios under consideration by Cabinet. Ministers would not answer questions about this on the Hill today. A Windsor mother is speaking out after her son was assaulted during lunch hour near his high school. She wants to see more done to prevent incidents like this, and she's looking to the school board and police for answers. Jacob Barker has more.
Lunch hour at Kennedy Collegiate spills into this plaza. It was around this time last Monday. Things took a violent turn.
Him and his friend had gotten snuck up from behind, choked out, thrown on the ground, and kicked repeatedly over 10 times in his head.
Laura Maxwell says her son and a friend were attacked unprovoked by two students from another school. She asked for him not to be shown or named for fear of retribution.
He suffered a severe concussion. Since it's just intense bruising all over his head, but where they kicked him above his eye, it was so forceful that you could actually see the shoe treads in his head. My son's a quiet kid. He keeps to himself. He rarely goes out. He's got few really good friends, and he did not deserve this. Nobody deserves this.
Burger King has added a security guard since the incident, but Maxwell questions how the situation was handled.
There were no paramedics called. He was made to walk back to his high school and wait for me to show up. There was no police presence. There was an auxiliary officer who spoke to me very rudely and told me to speak to my son's principal. The cops were not aware of the situation until after my son received medical care, and I came home and I called and had to open up a case file on my own.
She says she'd like a closer eye to be kept on the plaza by police and the school.
I believe the school administration for all high schools in Windsor, Ontario should have a security personnel monitoring the property lines before school, during lunch hour, and after school. It's the only way we're going to be able to catch the attackers and the people that are hurting our children.
Well, Windsor police say they do patrol high schools, and they did attend the incident, took a report, and made 2 arrests, charging 2 youths with 2 counts of assault and assault to cause bodily harm. The Greater Essex County District School Board says the school was made aware of the incident after police had already responded, and that it reached out to the family of the victim and monitored the student's condition. It is difficult to support students when they leave the school grounds during meal period and spares, it said in a statement.
I wish it was me that took those kicks to the head. My son's only 14 years old. I don't think he's ever going to forget this. He's never going to forget this. This has scarred him for the rest of his life.
Jacob Barker, CBC News, Windsor.
A local advocate is fighting for inclusive employment for people with disabilities, and he'd like to see it treated as a priority this municipal election. Here's what Kevin McShann would like to see from the city. A city task force to focus on the issue. A citywide initiative to get businesses to hire people with disabilities. A partnership with educational institutions to set up more internship opportunities. And for the city to work with the federal government to set up a universal basic income for those with disabilities. I spoke with McShann about why this needs to be a priority.
The reason this is personally important to me is because I live every day trying to advocate on behalf of individuals with disabilities, because I truly believe that a diverse perspective is important when it comes to inclusive employment. For me personally, I haven't held a full-time job since 2019, so it's important for me to bring the light to this issue because it's important for individuals with disabilities to have a fully inclusive sort of avenue in society, and the municipal election is another opportunity to bring those important issues forward.
How does it feel that there's still so much work that needs to be done?
Well, you know, inclusive employment is a never-ending battle of, first of all, making sure that it's seen as an issue, and that it's not just given lip service, and that action steps are actually taken to address this issue. It's incredibly frustrating that we seem to be moving at a snail's pace on this issue. Certainly, folks with disabilities are talented people, and I really always say that they're an untapped segment of our population, and you know, people with disabilities have to solve problems and come up with solutions every day. So I really think business leaders and those within our political atmosphere really have an opportunity to lean into these individuals to really make a dent in this issue.
What's your hope?
Well, my hope is that Windsor can be an inclusive leader when it comes to inclusive employment. You know, the next mayor of Windsor really has a chance to be an inclusive champion on this issue. So my hope is that they really roll up their sleeves and make sure that individuals with disabilities are fully included on every aspect of society. And the first step of doing that, of course, is making sure that they're gainfully employed. You know, Katarina, I always say that people with disabilities have to pay taxes too, and so I really hope that whoever the next mayor of Windsor is takes this as a chief issue and really puts it at the forefront to make Windsor an inclusive champion on this particular issue.
Parliament has officially returned for the fall session. Earlier today, the Liberal government introduced its plan to provide Canadians with some relief from the high cost of living. And this was the first question period with Pierre Poilievre as the leader of the Conservative opposition. CBC's Marina von Stackelberg reports.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The new leader of the Conservative Party got right to it. Pierre Poilievre sparring with the Liberal government over the high cost of living.
Housing prices have literally doubled in this country under this Prime Minister. And now, with rising interest rates, which this government promised would not happen anytime soon, families have to spend 50% of their income just to keep a roof over their head, the highest in over 3 decades. And the solution from the Liberals? Higher taxes on gas, groceries, and paychecks.
After a 12-week break, the House of Commons returns to a fall session in what the Liberal House Leader calls an enormously tumultuous time for Canadians. His message to the Conservatives: this is not a time for games.
This is a serious hour that demands us to rise to the occasion with the best of our ability and to offer people all that we have to provide them solutions. So if, you know, there's a continuance of the circus, then, you know, they'll have to see who will buy tickets. But I don't think that's what people want.
The government introduced legislation meant to help Canadians struggling to get by. They will double the GST credit. Low-income renters would get a one-time check of $500. Children under the age of 12 could get up to $650 a year to go to the dentist. Legislation that was brokered through a deal the Liberals made with the NDP.
These are things that New Democrats have delivered and we have fought to make this government do, despite the fact they made it clear they didn't want to do anything and were opposed to things like dental just a year ago, and now we forced them to do it.
These programs will cost an extra $3 billion. The Conservatives say that will only make inflation worse. The Liberals say that's not the case, and that this new spending is just a drop in the bucket meant to help Canadians who need it the most. This on a day when inflation went down, but the price of groceries went up. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
As you heard there, consumer inflation in Canada eases once again. Statistics Canada reports it fell to 7% in August, down from 7.6% in July. The decline was led by a drop in the price of gasoline, which dipped nearly 10%. However, that was offset by grocery prices, which shot up almost 11%, the biggest jump in more than 40 years. That's why people may not have noticed the overall decline in inflation. Core inflation was also down in August, dropping to 5.5% from 6% in July. Core inflation does not include volatile items like food and fuel, and it's the measure the Bank of Canada uses when making interest rate decisions. The death of a woman in police custody in Iran has sparked days of violent protests. 22-year-old Mahsa Amini was arrested by Iran's morality police last week. Those officers are known to target women for not properly wearing the Islamic headscarf, known as a hijab. Amini died 3 days after her arrest. Ali Chiasson now on how her death and the demonstrations are affecting Canada.
I want to defend our life, you know. We don't have any right in Iran. I am here to be a voice of her.
These people are all collectively raising their voice, condemning the death of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini and calling for action.
To raise awareness of her unjust death and to convey a message to the world that Iranians' voices need to be heard.
Amini was in the capital city of Tehran when she was apprehended by the country's so-called morality police. Citing she was improperly wearing her hijab, she was taken into custody on September 13th. This is where she collapsed, was then taken to hospital, and died 3 days later. State media said it was a heart attack. People have since taken to the streets of Tehran and here in Canada to contest that and demand a woman's right to choose how and whether they wear the hijab at all.
Freedom of choice, freedom in thinking, freedom in expression. These are the demands of people. And the hijab is the symbol of all of these things.
University of Toronto professor Shahrzad Mojab says Amini's death has garnered international attention to a fight that's been going on for decades.
People of Iran are constantly protesting and demanding their rights, but the entire community, the international community's focus is on the negotiation and the nuclear power and all of that, while they ignore the gross human rights violation. This is their scream that should be heard about the justice, about their demand, and most importantly, separation of religion from politics.
They're fighting it in any way that you can imagine, and they're risking their lives because now they're walking without the hijab on the streets.
Mehrdad Hadi attended yesterday's rally in Toronto, and tonight she's off to New York to protest outside the UN, where Iran's president will be attending the General Assembly.
Women never stopped resisting.
We demand our rights because we are getting killed in Iran. So don't sit on the same table with them.
They're calling for sanctions. They're calling for international condemnation. Today, outside the UN, our government called for this.
Full and complete investigation into the regime's actions, and we deserve explanations.
Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
Live look outside there. It is looking gray. We do have showers on the way this evening and into tomorrow as well. Dolly Ashry will be here after the break with your weather forecast. There's a sliver of hope in the midst of Pakistan's flood disaster. Officials there report no new drowning deaths in the past 3 days as water levels continue to recede. However, diseases like malaria and dengue remain a threat because of stagnant water. At least 9 people died from such diseases yesterday, and more than 70,000 were receiving treatment at makeshift or mobile hospitals. The flooding has claimed more than 1,500 lives and left hundreds of thousands of people homeless. It has also decimated the country's livestock and agricultural sector, potentially setting back the country's recovery. Dahlia Ashry is here now with us for a look at our local weather forecast. Dahlia, we took a peek at the tower cam moments ago, and it's looking dark out there. It's not looking good.
Yeah, and it's going to get darker and rain. I mean, some people love the rain, but listen, I got to tell you, there's a lot of it coming your way, especially overnight. Just have your umbrellas ready as you head to work tomorrow, and have no fear, fall is near, so that means sweater weather is on its way. Tomorrow, though, is going to be a muggy day, but the normal high usually this time of year is 21 degrees. Today's high is 28 degrees, so we're sitting well above seasonal temperatures today. Usually the normal low is 11, and we're sitting at 13 degrees today. Now, like I said, we are going to be experiencing and seeing some rain later, but first let's talk about the current temperature right now. In Windsor, 23 degrees, Sarnia 24, and then you factor in that humidity and it feels more like 27 degrees. So quite a warm day outside today in Windsor and most of southwestern Ontario, and Western Ontario is going to be seeing a lot of rain tonight and as we head into tomorrow as well, risk of a thunderstorm. Now, let's take a look right here. You just saw there's that extreme rainfall and risk of a thunderstorm, which just flew past you there. But that is going to be going on tonight, overnight, and then tomorrow, really until 8 o'clock, that's when it starts to clear up. Thursday as well, there's a risk of rain, like some scattered showers, so just expect that on Thursday as well. And then look at that, Friday, it all clears up. There's also a cold front that's moving through the province, so that's going to cut through those temperatures that we're seeing, those warm temperatures, giving us more of those cooler temperatures in a few days, which we'll get to in a second. So a risk of thunderstorm tonight. To look at that heavy rainfall and precipitation, 70% chance of rain overall across southwestern Ontario and a risk of a thunderstorm. And then look at that, Thursday and Friday, you have a break, some dry conditions. Like I said, some scattered showers potentially on Thursday, heavy winds tomorrow, and it's going to feel like 38 degrees tomorrow with that humidity. So we're not going to have fall until Thursday, and then those single digits, look at that. Starting on Thursday, really the first day of fall, we're getting single digits, and that jump of temperature really, it starts to cool down starting Thursday, first day of fall, Friday, and it starts to decrease and become much colder. Katerina?
I was going to say, nothing says summer's over more like that shift from the Wednesday to the Thursday.
I know, that is literally right there. Canada in a picture, Ontario especially, 31 to 16. It's a huge jump.
Yep.
Yeah, sweater weather. Hope you have it ready.
Thanks for that, Dahlia.
Thanks, Katerina.
When we come back, we're going to take a look at a local phenomenon at the southern tip of Canada. Stay with us.
home.
The Toronto Maple Leafs have made a big move this offseason. Maybe you can guess where this is going. The team will wear a milk patch on their jerseys after reaching a partnership with Dairy Farmers of Ontario. It's part of a new NHL branding program that allows teams to sell advertising on their jerseys beginning this season. The patch, featuring the Dairy Farmers of Ontario's longtime logo, will be added to the upper right of the Leafs jerseys. Toronto isn't the only Canadian team to add an advertising patch this season. Both the Canadiens and Jets have also inked deals. Toronto will debut the jerseys Saturday in a preseason doubleheader against Ottawa. And who knows, this patch could be the missing ingredient in a Stanley Cup run. Summer officially ends this week, and a sure sign of fall is on display at Point Pelee National Park. These photos here, they were posted on Facebook by Darlene Burgess. Butterflies clustering at the tip. They do a nightly count at the park. On Monday, nearly 1,700 were spotted. It's an informed estimate, but it's quite the sight. And the park is the last spot for a bit of rest before these little wings flutter further south. That is so beautiful. And big thanks to Darlene for sending those in. That is it for CBC Windsor News. For news anytime, go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks for watching. Have a great night, everyone.